The Infinity Saga was a slow burn that turned into a massive inferno of awesomeness during Avengers Endgame. But now that the dust has settled, I'm already looking forward to seeing the next great threat to all of my favorite MCU characters. And this time, I'm thinking big. In fact, I'm thinking Beyonder this time around. This guy makes the Mad Titan look like a big purple teddy bear. When he's involved, the entire multiverse is in danger. Phase 4 will have to raise the stakes, and the Beyonder is the perfect villain for the job. As you might have guessed by his name, the Beyonder is a Beyonder. It's kind of like if Tony Stark just called himself the Human instead of Iron Man. But don't be fooled by this less than creative title, because this is one powerful villain. The Beyonders are an alien race who live in a dimension outside the multiverse, and they make the aliens we've seen so far in the MCU look like absolute weaklings. No offense to folks like Gamora or Mantis, but the Beyonders are nearly omnipotent and don't have to worry about little details like space and time. This particular Beyonder was a relatively young member of his species, who ended up getting dragged to Earth by the insidious group Intel. They were trying to attract a vibranium meteorite, but ended up with something much more dangerous. The Beyonder was intrigued by all of us comparatively primitive human beings and how we're just parts of a greater universe. Basically, the Beyonder was just as excited about the multiverse as we are. But to him, humans seem incomplete, and he believes they're driven by the desire to be complete. Suddenly, the Beyonder started to feel a little incomplete himself, and experienced desire for the very first time in his existence. Now, let's talk about powers, because this is a character who has most of his stats absolutely maxed out. There have been different versions of the Beyonder over the years, but he always maintains the ability to manipulate reality. Originally, he was the most powerful being in the universe, lording over even cosmic entities like the Living Tribunal and Eternity. Remember how hard Thanos had to fight to wipe out half of all life in the universe? Well, the Beyonder could extinguish the entire multiverse on a whim. Professor X can read someone's mind? Nah, that's cute, because the Beyonder can scan everyone's minds in the entire world. He's so over-the-top powerful that even normally impressive abilities like teleportation, flight, and regeneration all seem like afterthoughts on his resume. With the Mad Titan Thanos vanquished, it's obviously time for an ultra-powerful villain to start wreaking havoc in the MCU. This character will have to be strong enough to require a whole team of heroes to work together, put aside their personal squabbles, and go all out in an over-the-top battle sequence. And the last time our heroes did that could have perfectly set the stage for the Beyonder to show up during Phase 4. We saw Doctor Strange use the Time Stone in his standalone film, but Avengers Endgame introduced time travel to the MCU on a much larger scale. It also involved our heroes mucking around in the time-space continuum, like when they let Loki get his hands on the Space Stone, and he hopped right on over to Disney+. Wong warned us about the dangers of futzing with the time-space continuum, but since we're getting Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, it seems like maybe our heroes aren't listening. But messing around with the multiverse and the time-space continuum is a great way to attract ultra-powerful characters like the Beyonder. And in one particularly interesting storyline, the Beyonder even decides to pick on the notorious Kang the Conqueror. Yep, I'm talking about the Secret Wars storyline, which started off with the Beyonder deciding to look into this whole desire thing. Instead of just hitting the library, he decided to experiment with some of the most powerful beings on the entire planet. The nature of good versus evil is something theologians have spent thousands of years pondering. But the Beyonder decided to collect a bunch of heroes and villains and have them duke it out. Say what you will about the Beyonder, but he cuts right to the chase. He's interested in seeing the potential of our favorite heroes, which is something many fans can relate to. So he grabs a group of heroes and villains and brings them to a planet he created called Battleworld. I know it's not the most creative name, but what do you expect from someone called the Beyonder? This place is chock full of advanced alien tech and weapons, and he pretty much lets everyone go nuts. Let's take a look at the hero lineup here on Battleworld. There's the Avengers at the time, who consisted of Captain America, Monica Rambeau, Hawkeye, Iron Man, She-Hulk, Thor, and the Wasp. Then there are 3 members of the Fantastic Four, the Human Torch, Mr. Fantastic, and the Thing. Plus a group of X-Men: Colossus, Cyclops, Nightcrawler, Professor X, Rogue, Storm, Wolverine, and Lockheed the Dragon. Finally, we have solo stars Spider-Man, Spider-Woman, and the Incredible Hulk. Oh, and Magneto was on the hero side before immediately defecting to a neutral position. Deadpool was there as well, but the other characters all forgot about him for reasons not worth getting into at the moment. Then there are the villains: the Absorbing Man, Doctor Doom, Dr. Octopus, the Enchantress, Kang the Conqueror, Claw, the Lizard, Molecule Man, Titania, Ultron, Volcana, and the Wrecking Crew. Galactus was originally on the villain team, but like Magneto, he adopted a more neutral position. As you can imagine, things got pretty wild on Battleworld. She-Hulk joins up with the Fantastic Four, Colossus breaks up with Kitty Pryde, and Doctor Doom falls in love with an alien. Oh, and he also manages to steal the Beyonder's powers, which even for him is pretty impressive. Eventually, the Beyonder gets them back and shuts down his experiment, sending everybody home. I probably don't have to explain why having all of the heroes and villains dropped onto a planet together to fight would be awesome. Just imagine the final battle in Endgame turned up to 11. Attracting the Beyonder would inevitably lead to a battle of epic proportions, but we could also see some less cosmic but still entertaining storylines with the Beyonder. After his time on Battleworld, he decides to try out some physical forms in order to understand desire and experience life as a human. As you can imagine, he struggles to find his place and even begins to feel depressed. He consults with folks like Doctor Strange, Mr. Fantastic, and Captain America, and even tries out being a superhero just to feel like he has a purpose. A fish-out-of-water story involving an omnipotent character trying to make it in the human world actually sounds like a sitcom worth watching. Maybe Marvel could take advantage of Disney Plus and adopt that story for a small screen format. Plus, it's possible that we could see the Beyonder team up with other major villains like Kang the Conqueror. Because if we're talking powerful villains capable of messing with the multiverse, you just know we have to talk about good old Nathaniel Richards, or at least this version of him. Unlike the Beyonder, he's a human with no inherent powers of his own, but he has more than enough tech to make up for it, and can travel through space and time with no problem. Wreaking havoc in the present day is cool and all, but Kang can cause trouble all over the timeline, which is something the Fantastic Four knows about all too well. If the Beyonder makes his debut during the fourth phase of Marvel movies, then it's possible that it could only be a matter of time before Kang shows up as well. And once you get Kang, it's pretty much essential that the Fantastic Four gets involved. Since we're looking forward to seeing films like Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness, it's clear that the MCU is getting weird. Plus, our heroes are definitely getting stronger, and that means more cosmic characters like the Beyonder. He's especially versatile because he can act as basically a god or be transformed into a human being struggling to feel like he has a purpose in life. That's the combination of relatable and fantastical that Marvel fans just can't get enough of. And speaking of the fantastical, there's one major Beyonder plot point that could have a massive effect on the MCU. The Beyonder believes that his experiences with humans have tainted him enough that he could never be satisfied returning home with the other Beyonders. So at one point, he decides to become a fully mortal being, instead of just taking the form of one. But, I mean, mortals don't have any awesome powers, so he tries to bring those along as well. This trick involves a massive machine that turns him into an infant. But before he can bake into an adult, Molecule Man takes out Baby Beyonder. Yes, I know defeating a baby might not seem very heroic, but when all the world's heroes have tried and failed to defeat someone who can destroy the multiverse, things get a little bit morally complicated. Even though Baby Beyonder was toast, all of that energy ended up getting blasted into another dimension, creating a brand new universe where the Beyonder was essentially a god. As the MCU progresses both on the big and small screens, it's possible that we'll have more different timelines and dimensions added into the mix. Already, the Loki show will involve our favorite trickster god who's presumably on a different timeline. And then there's WandaVision, which exists in a world where Vision is still alive. A Beyonder world could be an interesting place for our heroes to visit, although in the comics this character wasn't exactly thrilled when guests started showing up. One of the reasons I think the Beyonder would be such a great addition to the MCU is because he can really be a hero or a villain. He might decide to wipe out the multiverse on a whim, or he might try and save the day. It's like getting multiple characters in one. And speaking of that, after the Beyonder gets his own universe, he discovers that his existence is actually because of a faulty cosmic cube. So he gets reshaped into a cube, which then evolves into the entity Kosmos. Frankly, that might seem a little bit out there, but that's exactly the kind of comic book craziness Disney seems more and more open to incorporating into the MCU. If the MCU is looking to the stars with films like Captain Marvel 2 and Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, then they're going to have to include more extraterrestrial characters like the Beyonder. You know, someone who could pose a threat to not just the universe, but the entire multiverse. As far as I'm concerned, we can always use more insanely powerful megalomaniacal villains in the MCU. Are you hoping for the Beyonder to show up during Phase 4, or is another villain higher up on your wish list? Let us know what you think in the comments section below, and then click on that subscribe button for more content from CBR. As always, thanks a lot for watching, and bye for now!